What Ridley Scott started in 1979 continues to pique the interest of horror fans in particular and all true movie buffs. Even after almost 4.5 decades, people continue to find new and fascinating bits of lore regarding the franchise and the titular monsters. For instance, we know that the xenomorph reproduction starts with the queen laying ovomorphs, of which come the facehuggers, which then eject an enzyme into a host, transforming their interior into a chestburster, which ultimately becomes an adult xenomorph. But what if I told you that Ridley Scott's original gave the xenomorph drones the power to reproduce without the need for a queen? Well, that's what egg-morphing and this video is all about. Let's begin, shall we? Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you, and let's begin. The deleted alien scene. Each of the Alien movies bestowed new abilities to the acid-blooded biometallic monsters that Giger created. However, one of the most thrilling of these is also one that the average Alien fan is not quite well versed with, and that's for a good reason. I mean, the scene was axed from Ridley Scott's original and found itself lying somewhere on the cutting room floor. The said scene followed Ellen Ripley, the legendary protagonist and one of the best movie characters ever created, as she explored the bowels of the spaceship, USCSS Nostromo, with a flamethrower in hand. Played by Sigourney Weaver, Ripley's ship was haunted by a lone xenomorph which was also stalking her. As Ripley entered the hold, she was shocked to find that the walls and floor had been covered in some thick and hardened resin. Of course, this was the work of the titular monster. Ripley investigated further and discovered that the grotesque bile was actually holding two of her colleagues, Dallas and Brett. Both men were left incapacitated by the resin and were secured to the wall. Captain Dallas was the only one alive, or rather barely alive, because the resin had done its work on him and started the process of transforming him. He had had enough of the terrorizing and traumatic experience and begged Ripley to euthanize him using the flamethrower she was armed with. She knew she could not save him even if she wanted to, but she told him that she could save him. Then Ripley noticed whatever became of Brett. The man was long dead and was almost enclosed in what looked like an alien egg or ovomorph. She feared that Dallas would meet the same fate as Brett sooner than later, and although she was unwilling to do it, Ripley gathered the courage to torch the resin and the two men along with it, thus ending Dallas's misery and sparing the poor man the horror of transforming into a xenomorph egg. Clearly, the scene held a great deal of importance as it would have set the stage for quite a few interesting events in the franchise. But back then, Ridley Scott thought that this egg-morphing scene was actually slowing down the third act of his iconic film. What exactly is egg-morphing? Allow me to explain. When a xenomorph drone finds itself without a hive, it resorts to a chilling and rather interesting strategy to survive and propagate. If there's one thing we know about xenomorphs, it is that the species will kill to live and live to kill. These guys have the strongest will to survive and will go to just about any length permitted by their limited brain capacity to breed. So to carry out egg-morphing, the lone xenomorph drone selects unsuspecting victims and envelops their bodies in a self-produced resin. This vicious substance acts as a catalyst, exposing the captives to a concoction of mutating enzymes and growth hormones. Over time, a ghastly transformation takes place. The captive's once familiar form is molded and reshaped, gradually taking on the likeness of an ovomorph. If you are wondering how exactly the xenomorph ejects the resin, it does so from the barb of its tail around the hapless host. And it's not before long that the host turns into an ovomorph with an active facehugger growing inside and all that. The process usually lasts for about 24 to 36 hours, and once someone has been gripped into it, there's little to no chance of their survival. Now, we do know that xenomorphs do cocoon hosts for the facehuggers. Well, that's obviously true, as the queen's progeny will need hosts. But what if a hive lacks a queen, or a drone is separated from the hive and finds itself abandoned? Well, its survival instinct will force it to produce an egg by one means or another. Now, while the drone's capacity to produce an egg is fairly less efficient than a queen's, it does come in handy. In fact, I believe that such ovomorphs actually contain royal facehuggers. This would sort out the problem of an absent queen. How could egg-morphing have transformed the franchise? The inclusion of the egg-morphing scene holds tremendous significance, defying the long-standing traditions of the franchise. Traditionally, tales woven around xenomorph infestations center on the formidable presence of a queen, whose eggs become the focal point of the narrative. This oft-repeated formula can at times lead to a sense of predictability, with the primary objective revolving around the eradication of the queen. However, egg-morphing opens up a direction of storytelling that eliminates the absolute reliance on the xenomorph queen. At the same time, it is important to note that the introduction of egg-morphing does not negate the presence of a queen altogether. As evidenced by the novelization of Alien 3, attempts were made to reconcile the two forms by acknowledging the existence of the deleted scene. Having said that, the significance of the egg-morphing scene extends beyond narrative innovation. It delves deep into the dark recesses of body horror, intensifying the terror that the xenomorphs unleash upon their victims. Behind the scenes. Remarkably, unlike many discarded scenes that fade into obscurity, the lost egg-morphing scene from Alien achieved a level of fame and was also included in the novelization. The existence of a filmed version of the scene was initially confirmed in the Book of Alien, a behind-the-scenes publication that accompanied the movie's debut. Numerous other publications from that year also referenced the excise sequence, such as the officially authorized magazine of the movie Alien and articles featured in the monthly magazine Famous Monsters of Filmland, both released by Warren Publishing. It was in 1992 when the actual footage of the egg-morphing scene alongside other deleted scenes saw the light of day through the Alien Special Collector's Edition Laserdisc, granting fans their first glimpse into the hidden piece of Alien lore. The footage continued to find its place in diverse home video releases as well as in documentaries chronicling the making of the film, commencing with the Alien legacy. Ultimately in 2003, the egg-morphing scene experienced a partial reinstatement in the film's director's cut, cementing its position as something of a canon. Even before the release of the director's cut, the egg-morphing scene had garnered considerable attention. There was confusion regarding the coexistence of these divergent means of xenomorph reproduction. Some questioned whether the scene should be disregarded as a retcon anomaly due to its deletion from the initial film. Notably, official sources have largely sidestepped the issue, except for the Alien 3 novelization, which acknowledged both forms of reproduction as typical for the species, adaptable based on the circumstances. Interestingly, when James Cameron held the directorial reins of the sequel Aliens, he introduced the queen as a means to bridge the reproductive gap of the xenomorphs. In subsequent years, despite its absence from Alien, the process of egg-morphing found its way into several unproduced scripts for Alien 3, particularly in Eric Red's unrealized script. Early versions of the final shooting script for the third film also included a similar scene, only to be excised once again before filming commenced. Years later, the concept made a somewhat canonical appearance in the novel Alien Prototype, albeit with a unique mutant xenomorph exhibiting distinct abilities, leaving ambiguity regarding whether the egg-morphing ability is shared by all the members of the species, especially the drones. Following the release of Alien Isolation, speculation arose that egg-morphing might explain the origin of the eggs discovered in the hive aboard Sevastopol station. However, the game's developers clarified that a queen was indeed the source of the eggs, though her presence remained unseen in the game. So what do you think about this whole egg-morphing thing? I mean, I personally find it to be an interesting aspect of the biology and reproductive cycle of a xenomorph. But then, that's just one person's opinion. We can use the comment section to have an informed and intelligent debate.